Hello guys, my name is Jack, and this is a little addendum before we get into this video. I just want to let you guys know that there's going to be no real relevant gameplay at all in this video. In fact, it's just going to be just a picture in the background, so if you guys want to minimize the window and walk around and listen, feel free to do so. And also, I just want to extend one more time a massive thank you to Nathan for taking the time to sit down and talk with me about Lawbreakers. You know, it's very hard probably for someone like him to justify sitting down with someone who has, no reputation for interviewing in the games industry, so I really appreciate it. Other than that, guys, thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to a very special episode of The Lion's Den. My name is Jack, and today I'm going to get a chance to sit down once again with the principal gameplay programmer now at Bosskey Productions. Nathan Wulf, he's one of the lead developers behind Lawbreakers, and we're getting a chance to talk to him today about how things have gone since launch. How are you doing, Nathan?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Okay, cool. I'm doing fantastic. So, kind of as a recap, obviously I've been on Nerds Rise now for a couple of months. Back on my personal channel, around the time of the first beta cycle for Lawbreakers, I got a chance to sit down with Nathan and talk to him about the game. And I'm very excited today to sit down and kind of follow up with him and see how things have gone since launch. And one of my first questions for you is that, over the course of the beta cycles, how have you seen the game progress and change, and how have you guys been handling like community feedback as far as like balancing and changing kind of the design as the game has progressed?
Well, I would say one of the biggest things is the pace of the game. Like when we first started out with some of the early alphas, the whole pacing of the game was a bit slower, and people wanted, people were always saying want it faster. So up the base movement speed, kind of reduced some of the fuel costs and fuel regeneration times. Also, health was a big concern as far as like how slow it was to regenerate health with the health station. So we added a bunch of stuff like health pickups, increased the rate at which the health regenerated at the regen stations, and added in the battle medic. I believe the battle medic was probably already in by the time you were playing in the closed betas there.
Yeah, I think I do remember that.
Yeah, so beyond that, there's lots of various little balance tweaks. Assassin in particular was kind of problematic because we thought she was going to be more of a high tier class, but she ended up being kind of the pub stomper, and so we made a few tweaks to her to kind of bring her more in line with the high skill play. We added like a precision attack where she would do more damage if the swords were aimed accurately at the player versus, because if you have a melee character, you want to have a little more lenience, especially with the movement as fast as ours. So there's kind of like a broader stroke of lower damage and then a higher damage if you're aiming more accurately. So that helped, I think, bring her more in line with the higher skilled play, and just lots of various tweaks. It's hard to remember exactly what all had changed.
So when you guys were like observing everything that was going on throughout the testing phases and even now after launch, do you guys like what's the mix? I found that when talking with like other developers or seeing what other developers put out about like their process, it seems to me that like you'll see like a very good mix of like internal metrics versus community feedback. Like, how do you guys weigh those two things? Does the community kind of play a bigger role in the balancing, or is it more what you guys see kind of behind the scenes?
It's a mix. I personally try to watch people playing on Twitch, check the Reddit and Steam forums, and we also have metrics that we gather as far as, time to kill for classes, average time alive, things like that we can look at and see how that lines up with community feedback and what things kind of need to be tweaked from patch to patch.
Okay, and then obviously going past like what we saw in the testing period, well, when the game launched, things obviously didn't go so well. And I felt like you guys, like we were talking about before, I thought the marketing was really solid. I really enjoyed the trailers. You guys did fantastic, community outreach. What do you think? Like, what do you think were some of the reasons why we saw like the player base not only start low but continue to trend downwards since launch?
Well, it's a extremely crowded and difficult to get into market, the first person shooter genre area in general. The competition is super brutal, and when we were making the game, Overwatch wasn't even known to us at the time, and PUBG kind of popped up out of nowhere too. So those games alone, I think, take a huge chunk of just the player base in general. Like the problem with a multiplayer game is you have to have a large number of people playing it, and then it kind of turns into the snowbally effect of, if there's not people at similar skill levels, or not enough people to have like matchmaking at good similar skill levels, it kind of tends to be frustrating for players, and then it starts falling off. And the curve is, I think, fairly natural in general. Like, you're going to get a big spike and at release, and then it kind of drops down. But I was kind of hoping it would go the other way. Also, kind of going on the topic of being brutal, Blizzard's marketing and strategy is really on point. Even though our game is very different from Overwatch, maybe it's coincidence, but Doomfist did happen to drop during the open beta, and then they did their summer games right on the same time we launched. So yeah, I don't know. It's a brutal fight out there.
Right, because it's like there's only so many things that end up being like truly original ideas. Like, obviously Blizzard doing their summer games, and then Doomfist, looking very similar to what we were seeing, like, gameplay wise out of some characters in Lawbreakers. You guys couldn't necessarily help some of that, but you guys, there were teases about Lawbreakers all the way back in like 2015, right? Like, even a little bit before that. Was there any like major hitches in development that ended up like pushing the launch date so far past that? Because obviously there was a lot of initial buzz about the game, but then you go through 2015 into 2016, and then we started seeing only the beta periods, end of 2016 to 2017. That's got to do a lot to bring the hype down, because you hear about it again, and eventually you just, there's no more surprise, right?
Well, yeah, the game actually ended up changing a little bit as far as the overall design. Like, I think when Cliff first had the inception of it, he was planning to do a more traditional arena shooter, and then we started bringing in some of the MOBA elements and such, and it turned into a much larger project. Although I would say from like inception of the studio to shipping a game in 3 years is still a pretty small development cycle, and I'm pretty proud that we pulled off what we did in that short amount of time. But it's just the overall vision of the game. I think we realized it could be a lot more than small, like, little arena shooter with a free-to-play model, which is what it was originally launched at, or originally like announced as, and I think that was just through a tweet or something like that that Cliff put out.
Right, and there seems to be a lot of people who are kind of latching onto that. Like, when I was looking over a lot of the Steam reviews, a lot of like the discussions, and then even stuff on Reddit, it seems that like time and time again, the main thing I'm seeing from people is like, it should have been free. Why isn't it free to play? Didn't you guys say it was going to be free to play? So that was never necessarily confirmed, or that was just like hearsay, like early on during the announcements for the game. That's my understanding of it?
Yeah, I don't know that it was ever officially announced as a free-to-play thing. I think it was, like I said, Cliff put out a tweet that, hey, I'm working on a free-to-play game with Nexon. And from the time that I started the project, which is 2.5 years ago, like, it was not that anymore. Like, it had already shifted from that design into something more. And so, like, people saying, it frustrates me when I hear people say, oh, it was a free-to-play game, and then they switched it to pay to play like right at the last second to try to get money out of people, when all throughout the development process it was never a free to play game. Like, we thought about some mechanics and we're like, we don't want to spend time trying to make this game so it's a means to monetize people. We want to make a game that's just fun at the core, and that's what we did.
Right. Do you think that the $30 price point maybe was too much for the fact that it is, when you boil it all down, it's a multiplayer only shooter with, I forget how many maps at launch. I think it was like, 6 or 7, and only a couple of game modes. Do you think maybe the $30 price tag versus what looks on the surface like, not that much content compared to other games on the market, do you think that was like one of those things where people were held up on the $30 price tag?
It's hard to say. I'd say it's pretty comparable to other stuff. I mean, it's cheaper than like Battlefront, was a full $60 title for a multiplayer only game, and it's cheaper than Overwatch, a little bit cheaper than Overwatch, and I think the content was comparable. There were fewer characters, but the characters themselves had a lot more mechanics built into each one, I think. And PUBG is also $30, so it's hard to say. Like, I don't think it's an unreasonable price, personally.
Right, yeah, that's not how I felt about it either, but it seems like people were either, they don't want to pay $30, and it seemed like that was like the major stopping point for most people. Now that we're at where we're at with the game, are you guys going to consider changing the price model, or do more discounts, or even maybe make that shift to free to play? Is that even a thought within your guys' mind right now, or are you guys just going to stick with what you're doing and try and support the game as much as possible to try and bring in an audience by making the game better from this point forward?
Well, we do actually, since you're talking about reduced price, we do have 50% off coming up this weekend. There's a free weekend. I'm not sure when you're gonna launch this video, but if you launch it this week, then people can probably get in and check out the free weekend and get the 50% off discount. So that's $15. We had it on the Humble store for $20. There was a sale on there. I don't know if there's any plans to do a permanent price drop. That's not really my call. I'm just a programmer, but that's kind of between the powers that be at Bosskey and Nexon.
Right. Okay, so let's step back to kind of the gameplay stuff. So I know that just recently, before you guys did this, your guys' Olympic Games update, right? You guys did a massive sweeping change to the entire sandbox of the game. You guys raised the health on all the characters, added health regeneration. Really seemed like you guys really shook up the pacing of the game. What ended up being a lot of the philosophy behind that? Was the game was it too insta-gibby, or was it one of those things where people were kind of they felt that the gameplay was random with how low the health pools were?
Yeah, so that was an attempt kind of based on feedback of people just getting frustrated with, you spawn in, you go out, you die instantly, you don't even have a chance to group up with your team. You're not able to really fight on the objectives. There's not much time spent alive. So we made some changes to get people actually actively playing more, even if the kills are less frequent. We felt it would be better to have people actually in and playing the game a little more. We wanted to kind of shift things around a little bit because what was there clearly wasn't working, and obviously people are screaming hey, Bosskey, do something. So that was an attempt to kind of get people in the game more, get people more familiar with moving around and doing objectives and not just getting deleted instantly.
Right. And then so since the update is launched, what do you think is like what's the general consensus been of how that update's been received? It's been really good. Is there still like some problematic stuff you guys are looking into? What's kind of like the balancing path going past this?
Well, like any change, it's kind of all over the place. Some people are really upset with it and say it should be completely reverted. Some people understand what we're trying to do with it and have more constructive feedback. And, we've made various tweaks since then, adjusting damage values and health values and stuff like that since that patch came out.
Right. So now that you guys have launched this big update with ranked and this new event and everything, what's going to, as far as like future content, are we going to see like new characters? Are we going to see like more additions as far as like game modes? Like going forward as like a player, especially with this free weekend and the discount coming up, what can people expect for new content to continue coming along?
Yeah, we do have a new character in the works, and we've got a new map, and there's a possibility of some game modes and stuff. Not really sure on that. It kind of depends on how that goes internally. If that seems like something we want to actually put out. I feel like if we get too many game modes out there, it might muddy up, the experience and make it a little more confusing to people.
Right. Is there anything you can give us as far as this new character, or is that really under tight lock and key and we can't get at that yet?
I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to talk about that, so
okay. All right, we'll just leave that one alone.
We'll leave that one alone.
It's something to look forward to, though, for sure. I mean, like with these hero shooters, I think the main thing is you gotta have like inviting and interesting characters, and kind of going off the rails for just a moment here. That was the one thing that I really liked about Lawbreakers versus something like Overwatch. So that felt like there was definitely a lot more effort put into what you get with each hero, as far as like what you could do with them. The kind of like the one thing that turned me off of Overwatch very early on was that things were so static, and there was this one good way to play all the champions, and then that was like it. But with Lawbreakers, it feels like there's kind of like there's a lot more like usability and like flexibility that I think makes the game like more appreciable, I guess is the right word. And that's one thing I've always appreciated about the game.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like I feel like the developers of Overwatch did a really good job, of making a very solid game. But I'm with you as far as the actual, like, each individual character almost feels like it's not a full character. And I guess that's kind of the design of the game, is that you have to work as a team, and you can't like go out by yourself and do everything. But I've personally found that kind of limiting. And we tried to take a different approach for Lawbreakers, both so we could kind of stay away from what Overwatch is doing, and because that's just internally how we felt about how the character should be. So each character, well, not each character, but a lot of the characters have two different weapons, sometimes primary and alt fire on each weapon, and then a lot of different mobility options and things, different ways you can play each character, which I think you get a lot more in each character, and you have to spend a lot more time mastering each one.
Yeah, for sure. So as far as like content, have you guys considered at any point doing something like a co-op? Not necessarily like because obviously it's too late to do anything like full-blown single player with the game. But was there ever any like inclination to do something single player, or like any kind of co-op related game modes to kind of add more variety than just a straight like multiplayer PvP shooter to the game?
It's something that we've bounced the idea around. It's not something that we've had the resources to actually get going on. I don't know if that's something we would ever do in the future or not.
Right. All right. Well, kind of bringing this to a close is what would you say to people who've already like written off the game as a failure? What would you say to the people who've like walked away? They don't think there's anything to come back to, and they've stopped playing. Like, what would you say to like bring them back, or like what would you say?
Well, first of all, it's kind of disappointing when people like walk away from something without, especially the ones that didn't even check it out and just dismissed it right away. On a gamer, the gamer in me is really concerned about the kind of death of the, or not necessarily death, but the dwindling interest in the fast-paced shooter. Like, you know, as someone growing up playing a lot of the Quake series and Tribes and stuff like that, it was really awesome to actually work on another fast-paced shooter, and I was really hoping we could bring that kind of play style back to life. So definitely consider like what games you're playing and what it means for the future of like games in general, and but as far as like coming back, you know, we're dedicated to the game. You know, a lot of people are like, why are you still putting out updates? You know, there's not many people playing. But even though there's not many people playing, we're still putting out patches. We're making balance tweaks. We're making new content. And hopefully with the free weekend coming up and sales and stuff, we can get some more people in the game. A lot of people have been saying we'll come back when there's more people playing, but if everyone says that, that doesn't help us get more players. Like, everyone that's saying that needs to get in and start playing. And you know, anybody that doesn't have the game and wants to check it out, definitely check it out this weekend. We're doing a free weekend, and if you missed that, I'm trying to stream regularly, so you can come in and ask questions about the game, see it actually played, and kind of interact one-on-one with the developer. If anyone's interested in that, I stream on twitch.tv/Jitspoe, JITSPOE. That's just me personally doing it because I love the game.
Right, and I'll make sure I'll put links to your Twitch down in the description down below, and that leads in pretty nicely to kind of just like close things off. I was going to ask where people can find out more about Lawbreakers and like social media stuff. If you want to go ahead and plug.
Yeah, so we're on Twitter on Lawbreakers and Bosskey. I'm on Twitter as Jitspoe. Also, we've got a Twitch account, Lawbreakers, twitch.tv/Lawbreakers, and we do streams there as well. They're the more official streams. My Twitch is just my personal Twitch. So, but I play Lawbreakers, you know, 2 or 3 times a week. Usually there. It's kind of starts late because I work late. So, you know, maybe 11 or so Eastern, 11 p.m. Eastern.
All right, cool. So, just to clarify some things about the free weekend, that's November 9th through 12th. I don't know the specific times. I could look it up, but I'll just put all that relevant information in the description down below. Obviously, a big thank you to Nathan for sitting down and talking about the game today. If you guys like what you just listened to, make sure you subscribe to Nurserise for more awesome content. Make sure if you are at all interested in Lawbreakers, I highly recommend checking it out. I'm going to be playing on the free weekend. I'm going to probably do some streaming as well. The game is very fun, and then, you know, if you weren't convinced at launch that the game was worth your money, I would definitely, you know, try the free weekend, and maybe the discount's enough to get you into it. Alright guys, my name is Jack. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.